This video series, a celebration of online publishing, is brought to you by the AOP Digital Publishing Awards. We're going to be exploring the factors that have driven the resilience and the success of the online publishing sector over the past 18 months. So we came together in person and via Zoom to see how the individuals, the teams and the brands which make this industry so successful will continue to grow audiences and provide outstanding solutions for advertisers. Innovation. How have publishers and their tech partners fostered a spirit of innovation to meet the challenges and develop the emerging opportunities in digital publishing, a sector which has learned to manage fast-paced change?
For us, the challenge was really we launched in March 2020. So I think we had the news out that we will launch, and 2 weeks later the UK went into the first lockdown. We were all really motivated and did that in a 100% virtual way. And I think this in itself was quite the innovation.
Bringing an entire company that's traditionally worked almost exclusively within an office and an in-person environment, taking that fully remote. That was, that was the big first innovation for us, and making sure that that everybody was properly set up and could function fully almost immediately. That was certainly a big thing for a business that has half of the company in the transport sector, in the railway industries, and probably most pertinently in the airport sector. That was a real challenge for us, where I guess perhaps a third of the company revenue is dependent on in-person events. Having to move quickly but intelligently to find a way through what was a kind of tough time for us required a lot of innovation. So moving quickly to virtual events, making sure that conferences could be in some way replicated by virtual panels, taking a very strong print presence across the entire business, making sure that had a really robust digital presence as well.
The Telegraph is going through a 5-year transformation from being a scaled ad-funded news brand to being a subscriber news brand. What really changed for us over the past year or so is that sometimes when you're trying to drive innovation, particularly in a big legacy business like the Telegraph, where a lot of things have been working for a really long time, and it's quite hard to foster an atmosphere of change, I think that almost changed overnight. So the things that are really key for us are being able to kind of laser focus on what's really going to drive innovation, what's really going to make changes, and suddenly the whole business was really able to do that and stop focusing on distractions, but really thinking about what's going to kind of pull us all through together across the next year and what do we need to change. The second one was, I think, in our peer group as well as within the Telegraph itself, there's an even greater feeling of collaboration and publishers feeling as though we're all on the same page together and we all need to share best practices and look out for each other. We're not each other's competitors anymore. So I think that was accelerated. And then also I think the sort of fertile ground in the market for some things to change and change forever happened or accelerated because of lockdown as well, because everyone was suddenly thinking about how are we going to do things differently, now from tomorrow and for a really long time. We measure the effectiveness of stories in terms of subscriptions and engagement and time spent from readers instead of search traffic and kind of passerby traffic coming in and out. So it's that time spent which is really key, and stories, the right story has to be written. It could be a short story, it could be something very snappy, or it could be something much more long form. And we've thought about that across all of our publishing. So in video, for example, we've been making more long form, sort of more documentary style pieces, whereas maybe 5 years ago they were quite, all quite snackable. But I think there's a real thoughtfulness about what's right for the story and what's right for the reader, as opposed to maybe the temptation in publishing a few years ago was how do you monetize this? Kind of where's the commercial angle? It
really matters to me if a piece lands, and one is very aware that if a story really lands, if it does well on social, if it starts a conversation, that's enormously important to me, and I think to my bosses. But I think that you do have to decide who you're answering to and who you're working for. And certainly what was drilled into me at journalism school, I went to journalism school in the US, but that ultimately the person you're accountable to is the person who's reading your story. And I think if you keep that in mind, it clarifies a lot of things.
We always kind of have this mentality that I think technological advances in the industry lend way to new avenues of strategic thinking for supply and demand. And I think we've seen a wealth, I mean, since we adopted pretty much every format, be it CTV, outstream, in-stream, pre-roll and display, you know, we can see the various different avenues that publishers take to monetize that.
We just dropped our paywall. That was the thing. That was the thing that we did that was the most significant. And I shouldn't dress it up any more than that, because it was a big thing and it made a lot of difference. I knew we had to do it because I knew HSJ, which has been around 120 odd years, it could not credibly cover the pandemic, but restrict people who weren't subscribing in the NHS and the wider health and social care world from the information that we were collecting. What's happening now? Our subscription revenues have increased. Yeah. And people who are buying subscriptions are saying, whether it's true or not, I don't know, are saying, we are taking an HSJ subscription because of what you did during the pandemic. Not only, two things. We became exposed to the quality of your content for the first time because it was free, and we realised how important how good it was, and also how important it was. And colleagues said to us, "This stuff is really good." And secondly, you did the right thing when the NHS was facing its crisis. You did the right thing. Your values and our values aligned.
I think trust is a key thing as well, and it pairs with user experience. Look at all the data privacy laws, GDPR, everything that's come into play. Publishers have had to adopt CMPs. Which CMP are they going to use? How are they further interacting with the audience, their consumer? Trust is a key thing as well. And I think once you have that pairs with UX and user experience across board.
I wonder if the greatest innovation during this pandemic period is when the world faced a really serious challenge to, everybody's way of life, people had rediscovered the importance of journalism, the importance of serious journalism.
We had a very successful branded content department called Spark, and we've changed that up completely because we had a recognition that advertisers shouldn't be briefing something that looks like content. We have to take this theme of editorial is first and the reader is first through every single thing that we do. So the way we approach sponsorships now, for example, and that branded content piece, is we start with the editorial, sort of what's the story, what's right for the reader, and then we seek out the brands who are the right fit for that, and can figure out a package and a sponsorship for them around it.
I think it's about embracing the balance of the quality content they produce and how it can match advertiser needs. And that's always one of the challenges that I find publishers have in that revenue model. It's the classic, evaluation of quality journalism against what ad revenue can we generate from it. And I think Karen raised a great point in that it shouldn't drive what you actually write about. It's how you can actually pair that with, I guess, educating the market on this is what we produce, this is what's quality, this is what you can get out of it. And then from an internal perspective, on a publisher side, it's what platforms can we integrate with, what technological advances will lend weight to new revenue for us.
We've looked at a number of different projects that we think will help drive people that should be relevant and should be interested in our brands, and sort of have those touch points with them for the first time, hopefully entice them in. And the current initiatives, starting around, the kind of hypothesis we have is around having high value content, going to market, understanding what people want to hear about first of all, then producing high value content that could be, a report, it might be a virtual event 1-2 days, but putting together something that is relatively unique but that's free to access, and then going about marketing it in a variety of different ways so that we can then use it as a first touch point, bring people in, either immediately into the database, into a nurture pot, and then, again, build the quality and quantity of what we're doing, and then it allows us to then make sure that when people do come to the brand, when they are looking for engagement with the right people, that we have them in greater spades. And so that's kind of a big push for us, the data piece at the moment.
first-party data, that will become even more important in the next couple of years. We don't know how soon. It could happen next year. We don't know with all the risk around third-party data. So I think we are still, I'm confident that we are still the future and that there is a lot to do, and we will innovate, of course, within that.
From my conversations with multiple publishers, it's about understanding, I guess, the symbiotic relationship between data, your content, the quality of content, what you're covering, and the value exchange that you provide the users and the user experience, and all these facets you guys have mentioned. So it's very much across board, a common theme.